Hey, welcome to another episode of geekoutdoors.com. And so this is actually my second live stream. So, um, hey, welcome to another episode of geekoutdoors.com. Hopefully, this is actually displaying, but this is actually my second live stream. If you have not seen my first live stream, be sure to check that out. I'll leave it in the description area below. So, this week, what I want to talk about is flagships in 2017. And so specifically, it's going to be mainly Android phones because obviously there's really only one iPhone. And so let's go ahead and look at that because I really feel that it's something of I would say kind of like a disturbing trend, and what I mean by that is that there's more of the same and not enough innovation, I would say. So let's go ahead and start with the first flagship. And I'm not really sure if I would really consider this a flagship, but it's the HTC Ultra U. And so what this is once again HTC's attempt to take on the big boys, the Samsung Galaxies, the iPhones, and even to some extent the LG series as well. And so this is actually a extremely huge phone. I think it has a 5.7 inch screen. And the design, it's really reminiscent of the Samsung Galaxy S6. It had that camera hump and it has a really glossy back. Now, in terms of the specs itself, it does run on a Snapdragon 821 processor. It got 4 gigs of RAM and it's got a QHD screen. And you see a pattern with this for Android phones. They're more similar than they are different. And in this case, I really feel like HTC, I had the original HTC One, the M9. If I'm not mistaken by the name. But I really love the original HTC One. But I don't think HTC has ever been able to reclaim those glory days where they produced really beautifully designed phones. And of course, the boom speakers came with it as well. So in this case, for the very first quote-unquote flagship phone, it's kind of meh. If this was like a mid-range phone, I could say yeah. But the price is like $750. That's a lot, you're competing against same price point as the iPhones and Samsung Galaxies, and unfortunately you're not going to win the fight there. Okay, so HTC is going to release the HTC M11 later on this year, and I'm more excited about that one than I am the HTC Ultra U, and hopefully they're going to bring back a lot of what HTC was known for before. Really beautiful design, high-end specs, worthy of a flagship phone, and just bring that back to form because I really miss HTC when it comes to that. Now the second flagship phone of the year is the LG G6. Now this phone I really feel is a huge step up from the LG G5 because that's actually the phone that I have. I have the LG G5 and I was really disappointed, and I have stated this before, I was really disappointed with the quality of the LG G5, but this is where LG G6, they've really fixed a lot of mistakes, specifically with the build quality. So this one actually is the first phone in 2017 that really focus on screen real estate. The screen to body ratio is a staggering 80%, as you can see here. And a lot of the comparisons that showed the LG G6 versus other phones with the same like screen size, they were much bigger. All you have to do is look at the competing Google Pixel phone to see that. And this one is unique in the sense that not only is the screen design difference and the really bezel-less design, but also the camera. Now instead of having one 12 megapixel and the other one I think it's like an 8 megapixel, now it both has a 13 megapixel camera. Now the sensors are slightly different, but this is really what it should have been at the beginning. And the specs, they are pretty much the same as the HTC Ultra. So it's not the most recent Snapdragon processor. It is the Snapdragon 821, and it includes all the other goodies that you would expect with the LG G6. It's got the micro SD card, which I always appreciate. It does have wireless charging for people in the US, and it also has water resistance as well. So it's actually IP, whatever the actual number is, it's actually certified water resistance, IP68. So that's really great. And it's got Gorilla Glass on both sides, and so this is everything that the LG G5 should have been. Okay, so I'm really digging it. Does that mean I'm gonna get one? Probably not. I'm still like feel like I'm kind of burned from getting the LG G5. Okay, and so in the specs here, as you can see, it's pretty much the same as what you would get with the HTC Ultra, although the way that they offer it, I think, is a much better way than what HTC has done. Okay, and so moving on, we also have the upcoming Samsung Galaxy S8, and if you look here, once again, they're following this same trend of like more screen and less bezels, and it looks very similar to the LG G6. You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, if you look at that, and then you look at these shots of the Samsung Galaxy S8, it looks very similar, but this one looks like it's taller. That's a pretty large screen, and you know, Samsung, their Galaxy phone has always had top-notch everything, you know, especially with the screen, and it has the AMOLED screens with which they use, and at the same time, you know, this one's gonna have the best specs. You know, it's gonna have the Snapdragon 835 processor, and it's still gonna have all the other features that a Samsung Galaxy is known for. Samsung, I think, throws more features in their phones versus any other flagship phone. So you're still going to get the micro SD card expansion. You're going to get the waterproof, water resistance. You're going to get the wireless charging. And so when it comes to features, nobody does it better than Samsung. And I think their quality is the best when it comes to Android phones. Although I'm still not a big fan of the TouchWiz user interface that they have on there. And so I really think out of all the Android phones, in terms of the flagships, this one's going to be obviously the best seller, but it's also going to probably offer the best in terms of quality for your money. Okay, so then obviously the other flagship that has to be mentioned is the new Google Pixel 2 phones. Now, for me, in terms of the whole Nexus and then the Pixel phones, I really like a lot of things, but I really feel like, you know, such features, I always talk about this, is not having a micro SD card. I really feel like that is something that you should have in every flagship phone, especially when it's on Android. And here, you know, these are some of the renders, and, you know, it looks like an iPhone, you know, so I think Google's going to stick to that it's going to be very iPhone-like, but like all the other manufacturers just previously, it's going to have a really pretty much huge screen to body ratio. So once again, more screen for your money. And so that's another render of this one. But you cannot discount Google. They are more of a long-term approach, and so they come out every single year with this. You know, even if the sales are low for it, they are going to be a force to be reckoned with their Pixel brands in a few more years. Okay. And the final big flagship phone that's coming out, and nobody can discount this at all, or maybe ever, is the iPhone 8 in the fall of this year. So there's not a lot of information yet, and obviously some of these features are now new to the iPhone world. But, you know, the iPhone has never been about features. You know, it's about many other things, including, most importantly, the whole ecosystem that Apple provides. And so in this case, I really think, once again, it's going to follow the model of all these other Android flagship phones, starting with the LG G6, Samsung, and Pixel, is the fact that more screen, less bezel, you know, and hopefully they'll bring back the earphone jack, headphone jack. I doubt that's going to happen, but who knows, you know. Now, moving on, I did want to talk about some other flagship phones that probably a lot of people will probably not think about or really consider. It is the mid-range manufacturers or low-end manufacturers. Actually, they started low-end and now they've been offering more mid-range, but now they're getting into the high-end. And I think that was the whole goal of all of these manufacturers, okay? So Huawei is the first one, you know, and out of all the Chinese-based manufacturers, they are, in my opinion, the biggest one, okay? Besides Motorola, which is owned by Lenovo, but actually Huawei, I think, has a much bigger market share when it comes to that. And so the Huawei P10 Plus, okay, this is a really beautiful looking phone. It kind of looks like to me, like an iPhone, a lot like an iPhone. Even their user interface looks like it, mixed with a little bit of the Samsung Galaxy, I would say. But the difference here is that it's got this dual camera lens, which works really similar to the previous year's iPhone, but these are made by Leica, and Leica, you know, is a really well-known, very well-respected brand when it comes to cameras and so forth. So this looks like a really good-looking phone. Once again, very iPhone-like, and even their user interface, their UX is definitely modeling the iPhone here. But I feel like for this one, for them to go really, really high end, I'm not sure. how the U.S. market is going to handle this. Obviously, in their home countries and probably even in Europe, they're going to do better, I would think. But I don't think Huawei has the brand name market share yet. When it comes to high end, because if I remember correctly, this is like 699 euros, so that's going to be about $700, a little over 700 US. So this is definitely not a cheap phone, and so they normally they release really high quality mid-range phones and some budget phones as well. And as you can hear from the specs, typical of Huawei, they typically use their own Kirin octa-core processors, and that's what they're using here. And it's got the Mali GPU as well, but it's pretty beefy. You know, it's got everything that you would expect of a flagship phone, and it's even splash proof as well. But the main thing that this has, that I think its main selling point, is the fact that it has those dual Leica design or Leica screens, camera sensors that they have. So that's going to be unique. And slowly but surely, Huawei has really been making inroads into the US market. You know, when I first saw them at Best Buy, where you could buy the phone outright and unlocked, I like, okay, they're really taking this seriously, okay? And moving on, let's go to Xiaomi. So the Xiaomi Mi6 is coming up as well. Their other previous one was the Mi5. And Xiaomi is very well respected. I think they're like second only to Huawei when it comes to branding in China. And their quality has consistently gotten better, you know? And so this is going to be truly the highest end, just like the Samsung. It's rumored to have a Snapdragon 835 processor, and it will have basically stock Android, maybe, you know, if that's what they're meaning by this. Well, no, actually, this is talking about the site, but this is going to be a full-on flagship phone. However, look at the price. I mean, this is where Xiaomi is basically destroying their competition. They're offering absolutely top-notch specs for an extremely cheap price. So I'm still not sure how they're able to do this. And once again, it's all about the screen. You know, very few bezels, and I think that's going to be the whole theme of this year when it comes to all of the flagship phones, is really bezel-less phones. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see what they do here. But typically, Xiaomi is not a well-known brand in the US yet, and I don't think they really sell that directly here in the US. Okay, but their brand keeps growing and growing, and they keep hitting on quality for money. Okay, and that's the same thing that a lot of other manufacturers in who are China-based are doing, such as Oppo and also the OnePlus brand. Okay, now moving on, this is one that I didn't really expect. It's the Nokia. It's actually going to be the Nokia 8 right here. However, a lot of people are the rumors that it's going to be very similar to the previous Nokia 6 Android phone. And man, Nokia, they've been around forever, and I was really sad to see them go. And so whenever they got sold to Microsoft and so forth, but I think they're really trying to make a comeback, and it looks like it's going to be something that they're going to go for the long term. And once again, very iPhone-like, but it also has some characteristics of the LG as well. But this is the N6 though, but they're saying it's going to be very similar for the N8. So I'll be looking forward to see what Nokia does with this, Nokia/Microsoft. So once again, specs very similar to the rest, QHD, water resistant, and so forth, and then also focusing on that very high quality metallic build. Okay, so and Snapdragon 835. So I'm not sure how well they're going to do here in the US, because obviously their market share has gone down a lot, but probably still in European countries and parts of Asia, they still have a huge influence. And one of the big things that the Nokia phones, especially when they were the Windows Nokia phone version that they had, was their cameras. And so right here it's going to be at least a 23 megapixel, so that's going to be crazy. But it's never about the megapixels, you know, it's about the sensors and all the technology they use. But the Nokia phones, their flagship of the past, did a really good job. And so we'll look forward to seeing what Nokia/Microsoft brings to the table here. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about, and I did do an episode on this, but the phone that really, you know, gets me the most is still the Moto G5 Plus. I know it's not a quote-unquote flagship, but I really feel like this is where these are the type of phones that you should be getting, and especially at the price points. That's just my opinion. Not to say it's not worth it to go for these flagships, but at a price of usually over $700, and then depending on which country you buy these from, it could be easily over $1,000, especially when it comes to phones like the iPhone. Okay, so I really feel like this is going to be the future, okay, of quote-unquote flagship phones, where these smartphones become such a commodity that they simply are can't price it at that level, even for Apple's iPhones. At some point, so many people are gonna have smartphones that it just doesn't make sense for them to sell it at that price point, because most people already have smartphones by that point. Okay, but obviously the whole point of them is to get you in their ecosystem, so that's the whole point. So overall, my whole thought on the flagship phones of 2017, at least at this point, is they're pretty much all the same. That's something that I wish I couldn't say, but I mentioned this many times before. I really feel the smartphone world is becoming stagnant. Even when it comes to the flagship phones, and I don't really see much that's really innovative anymore. They all pretty much look the same. They all pretty much offer the same technologies and functionality, especially in the Android phones. They're pretty much the same. And iPhone, it's an Apple iPhone. I mean, it's Apple, and so it's hard to compare against them, because it's really the brand first that people buy, and not the actual phone itself, because technically your Android flagship phones just do way more. And so those are my thoughts on the current flagship phones of 2017. If you had any thoughts on any of these phones, be sure to leave them in the comments area below. And if you had any other suggestions for other smartphones that you think would be even remotely exciting, leave those in the comment areas below. And if you do like these live streams, I'd also like to know as well, because I do intend to do more live streams, but would like more people to participate in the future, so we could have this type of conversation on a regular basis. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on another episode.